For years, the message to older adults has been more or less the same. Feeling tired all the time, that's just aging. Waking up at 3 in the morning and staring at the ceiling, that's just what sleep looks like after 60. The leg cramps, the low energy, the foggy thinking, all of it filed under the natural cost of getting older, nothing to be done, nothing worth mentioning at the next checkup. Millions of people accepted that framing without much question, partly because it came from a place of genuine care, not dismissal. But here's where that story starts to wobble, because researchers have been tracing many of those exact symptoms back to something far more specific, something measurable, something correctable, and something that has surprisingly little to do with age itself. If you're over 60 and you've quietly written off certain things, the nights you can't sleep through, the cramps that wake you at 2 a.m., the energy that just isn't there anymore, this is worth slowing down for. According to the National Institutes of Health, an analysis of National Nutrition Survey data found that 48% of Americans take in less magnesium than they need, and men over 71 are among the groups most likely to fall short. A separate analysis focused specifically on older adults found the gap was even wider within that age group, with a large majority not meeting recommended levels. Magnesium isn't a background player in the body. It's involved in more than 300 biochemical reactions: muscle function, nerve signaling, heart rhythm, sleep regulation, bone strength. When levels quietly drop, the effects rarely announce themselves clearly. They tend to look, instead, exactly like a list of things you've already decided to accept. Here's the belief worth questioning. The assumption, reinforced by decades of routine checkups, is that the changes older adults feel after 60 are mostly inevitable. Slow down, sleep less soundly, feel more tired, expect more aches. There's some truth buried in that. Age does bring real change, and no one is claiming otherwise. But that framing has also made it remarkably easy to overlook a specific, correctable deficiency that mimics those same symptoms almost exactly. Many older adults never connect their fatigue or restless nights to magnesium, precisely because the symptoms look so much like ordinary aging, and because doctors themselves are often working from the same assumption during a routine 15-minute appointment. And once something looks like aging, most people, patients and sometimes even clinicians, stop looking for another explanation. This isn't only about skipping leafy greens. The NIH's own research notes that as people age, magnesium absorption in the gut becomes less efficient while the kidneys release more of it through urine. So a deficit can build even in someone eating a reasonably balanced diet. Layered on top of that, several medications commonly prescribed to older adults actively deplete magnesium. Diuretics, particularly loop and thiazide diuretics, often used for blood pressure or heart conditions, increase how much magnesium the kidneys excrete, while certain other diuretics actually work the opposite way, which is exactly why this isn't something to adjust without a doctor's guidance. Proton pump inhibitors, the acid reflux medications millions of seniors take daily, are a documented cause too. The FDA issued a formal safety warning about this back in 2011. After reviewing cases where long-term PPI use led to low magnesium that sometimes didn't fully correct until the medication itself was re-evaluated by a physician. None of this means these medications are wrong to take. It means a senior who is doing everything right, taking their prescriptions, eating reasonably, can still end up running low without any obvious reason why. Here's something that catches many people off guard. A standard blood test for magnesium can come back looking completely normal, even when someone is genuinely deficient. Clinical research explains why. Less than 1% of the body's total magnesium actually circulates in the blood. The rest lives inside cells and in bone, and the body tightly regulates blood levels by pulling from those reserves when they start to drop, almost like drawing down a savings account to keep a checking balance looking steady. So the number on a routine lab report can look fine, while the tissues themselves are running low for months or even years. It doesn't trigger a flag in a chart, and it doesn't prompt a follow-up conversation. It just shows up, quietly, as things that start to feel like they're simply you. The symptom picture tends to build gradually, which is part of why it's easy to dismiss. Sleep is often the first thing that shifts. Magnesium plays a role in calming the nervous system at night, and when levels drop, both falling asleep and staying asleep tend to get harder. Muscle cramps, especially in the legs and feet, are another well-documented early sign, the kind that jolt someone awake and usually get blamed on circulation or just something that happens now. Persistent fatigue that doesn't improve with rest, occasional heart palpitations, and constipation round out the picture. What makes this particularly easy to miss is that each of these symptoms has plenty of other possible explanations on its own. Poor sleep could be stress, cramps could be dehydration, fatigue could be a dozen things. No single symptom points clearly to magnesium by itself, but taken together, especially in someone already at higher risk because of age or medication, they're worth asking a doctor about directly rather than treating each one as a separate, unrelated inconvenience. A short stretch of low magnesium is uncomfortable. A longer stretch is something doctors take more seriously. According to the NIH Professional Fact Sheet, magnesium plays a documented role in heart rhythm regulation, and chronic low levels have been linked to abnormal heart rhythms, along with reduced bone strength over time. A recent analysis of National Health Survey data covering more than 10,000 U.S. adults also found that higher magnesium depletion scores, a measure that accounts for medication use, kidney function, and other factors beyond a simple blood test, were independently associated with a higher likelihood of stroke, even after adjusting for other cardiovascular risk factors. None of this means magnesium is a fix for any specific condition. It isn't, and no supplement should be treated that way. But it does mean that running consistently low is not a neutral, side effect-free state to sit in indefinitely. The foods richest in magnesium, spinach, Swiss chard, pumpkin seeds, almonds, black beans, aren't always front and center in the typical American diet, especially for older adults managing smaller appetites or dietary restrictions. And here's a detail worth pausing on. Many seniors who are already taking a magnesium supplement may be getting less benefit from it than they think, simply because of which form they're using. Magnesium oxide is one of the cheapest and most common forms on store shelves, but it isn't always absorbed very well, with a lot of it simply passing through the digestive system and used. Forms like magnesium glycinate and magnesium citrate are generally absorbed more efficiently and tend to be gentler on digestion. Which one actually makes sense still depends on a person's full health picture, not a one-size-fits-all answer, but it's exactly the kind of detail that's easy to miss when picking up whatever bottle happens to be cheapest on the shelf. If any of this sounds familiar, the sleep, the cramps, the fatigue you've been quietly accepting, the most useful first move isn't ordering a supplement online. It's a conversation with your doctor, since the right next step depends on everything else going on in your health picture. Ask specifically about magnesium, and ask whether a standard blood test is enough in your case or whether a different kind of testing would give a clear answer. If you're on a diuretic or a proton pump inhibitor, that's a particularly worthwhile detail to raise, given how directly those medications can affect magnesium over time. And if a medication needs adjusting, that should always happen with your doctor, never on your own. It's also worth mentioning any other supplements you're already taking, since magnesium can interact with certain medications, including some antibiotics and osteoporosis drugs, in ways that matter for timing and dosage. Small, steady changes to diet, like adding a handful of almonds or spinach a few times a week, can also add up meaningfully over weeks and months, even if they're not a complete solution on their own. Everything shared here is general information, not personal medical advice. If any of this feels relevant to you or someone you care about, your doctor is the right person to work through it with, since they know your full history in a way this video simply can't. Think of this as a starting point for that conversation, not a replacement for it. So here's where things actually land. The idea that tiredness, poor sleep, and muscle cramps are simply what aging feels like isn't entirely wrong. Age does bring real change, and this isn't a video arguing otherwise. But that framing has also made it easy to stop looking for explanations that might genuinely be there underneath it. Nearly half of Americans fall short on magnesium, and the symptoms of that shortfall look almost identical to what many people assume is just the cost of getting older. The blood test that's supposed to catch, it doesn't always. Some of the most common prescriptions in a senior's medicine cabinet can quietly make it worse, often without anyone connecting the dots. None of this has to stay invisible. It just needs the right question asked in the right appointment by someone who knows to ask it. The most overlooked health problems are rarely the dramatic ones. They're the ones that have already been mistaken for something else entirely. Drop a comment below. Had you ever connected any of these symptoms to magnesium specifically, or did they just feel like things you'd learn to live with? And if you tried a magnesium supplement, whether it helped or did nothing at all, we'd genuinely like to hear that too. If you want to know about another mineral that plays a bigger role in heart health after 60 than most people realize, that conversation is coming soon. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it.